everybody, and welcome to the show. Happy Friday. I'm your host, Amala Ebanobi, and today we're going to be discussing a ton of stories. First, is MSNBC on the chopping block? And if it is Elon Musk going to go and scoop it up? There is some whispers that this is something that could be happening, so we're going to be covering that. Another one that might be on the chopping block, The View out of ABC. You know, Sunny Hostin, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, they might be going bye-bye. So we're going to be talking about that and what happens on the other end of these ladies not being able to talk their shit on TV anymore. Okay. Plus, we're re-entering the bathroom debate that Nancy Mace has opened up at the U.S. Capitol, where she said, you know what, if you're a man, you go to the men's bathroom. I'm a woman, I'm going to go to the women's bathroom. And if you identify as a woman, I don't know that I can help you out there. Many are weighing in on that, coming after Nancy, calling her a transphobe. Plus, we now have the Snow White trailer that is airing in theaters as people are going to see Wicked. We're going to watch the Snow White trailer, give our thoughts, as there's been much controversy surrounding the live action remake itself, plus Rachel Zegler's involvement as she refuses to not be political and attack those that she disagrees with. But before we get into all those stories, of course, we have Taylor in Nashville.
Yes, indeed. Excited to talk about the mainstream media meltdown. You just hate to see it, but it started on election night and we've still got plenty more to watch and react to. So let's get into it.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about MSNBC today. Of course, we know Joy Reid is on MSNBC. Rachel Maddow's on MSNBC. We see Jen Psaki from time to time. Mika and Joe of Morning Joe find themselves on MSNBC. And it seems like the network might be on the chopping block. Now, I initially heard these rumors from Bill O'Reilly. He said this on News Nation. Let's roll the clip.
Comcast said, you two, we're going to have to try to mend some cliche fences, and you two are going to go in there and you're going to try to tamp it down. Because Comcast knew the next day they were going to announce that MSNBC is vapor. That is a huge media story.
Why is
Enormous.
it vapor? Just because they're spinning it off and putting them in the... They're spinning off a bunch of brands.
There's no spin-off.
Yeah, there is. It's a spin-off company.
There's no spin-off. See, you buy the propaganda, Cuomo.
Oh, okay.
See what I mean about
I'm just saying
people?
what's being reported.
All right.
But what do you know?
Yeah, I know, but why would you believe what's being reported? You want the real story? Here
Yes,
it comes.
please.
So they're uncoupling their word, Comcast, MSNBC from NBC News. That means MSNBC has no resources at all. None. They're not going to be able to pay these people millions of dollars, Rachel Maddow, whatever she's making. NBC News is saying, we don't want you around. Why? Because NBC News' numbers, Lester Holt and the Today Show, are catastrophe because half the country equates NBC News with MSNBC, and they won't watch. So NBC is desperately trying to save the mothership of information, and they have to throw MSNBC overboard. They're not putting anything into MSNBC. They want to sell it. So where's Georgie Soros now? Georgie's buying radio stations. You can get MSNBC for nothing. They'll give it to you.
They'll give it to you.
They don't want any more of this. Why? Because it's hateful. Not because it's so far left. The whole NBC Comcast hierarchy is far left. But it's hateful. They hate Trump. They hate people who vote for Trump. Everybody knows that. And you know what's next? The View. ABC News is going to have to cut ties with The View. And you saw that today or yesterday when Sunny Hostin had to read a legal statement in the middle of a segment. The lawyers get Whoopi Goldberg's ear and it said, we're bringing a statement in on a teleprompter. She reads it.
Okay, he ate. Okay, he said what he said. He said MSNBC is gone. The View, gone. We're in talks. We're in conversation. This is what I'm hearing. Now, so far, it seems like he's right about MSNBC, as they are on the chopping block, it seems, and NBC is trying to cut ties. So NBC is like the major news network that then owns and is working in tandem with MSNBC, and they are owned by Comcast. So they're now looking at MSNBC, which we've all seen. We've been covering MSNBC on election night. We watched as MSNBC had a complete meltdown as they sort of slow drip figured out that Donald Trump was going to be winning the 2024 election. They are seething just unbelievably with and at, I guess, conservatives. And they hate MAGA Republicans. They hate anybody who disagrees with them. They even hate classical liberals who are just saying, you know what, I don't agree with the woke leftism that you guys are espousing on this network. And we've just watched as things have really run amok for them. We've seen clips like Joy Reid, which I'm about to show you. And this is her saying, if you feel the need to distance yourself from conservatives in your life or people who voted for Trump, you probably should. You know, it makes sense to, because they're scary individuals and you don't know what they're going to do.
People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed. And if you would vote for that, people may not feel so confident that they're safe with you. This is not crazy. This is legitimate feelings of fear of you and a feeling that you might not be someone they could trust. If this thing goes way south, autocracies go south real fast and things get ugly and people get asked to do things and turn people in and point people out and turn on them. And if you're voting affirmatively, gleefully for this, people might, I don't know, may not feel so confident in you anymore. That's real, and you kind of have to live with it. So if you think that you can vote for what people see as their destruction and then demand that they still are cool with you and kiki with you and have Thanksgiving with you, like, I think you're kind of missing the point of what people are upset about. They're afraid. And autocracy and fascism are things that are legitimate to be afraid of.
Wow. It's just so wild. I mean, she's talking about missing the point as the point goes in one ear, out the other, over her head, circles all around her, slaps her in the face, and she still can't catch it. She still can't figure out what's going on here. You would have thought everybody at MSNBC would have gotten a major just rock when it came to the 2024 election, and that there would have been a realization on the other end of it of, oh my gosh, we've been really separate from what's actually going on in society, how voters actually feel, and maybe our demonization of this group of people, which now constitutes the popular vote in the US of A. Maybe we were wrong about that. Maybe we need to get connected to them. Maybe we need to remain on X, you know, talking to these people. Maybe we need to hear them out. Maybe we need to recalibrate and figure out what their issues are and why MSNBC was not a true reflection of their issues or of news in general. I mean, when you're hearing her speak, does this sound like the temperament or the thoughts of somebody who should be working in mainstream media? No, it doesn't. But unfortunately, this is just par for the course when it comes to MSNBC. This is truly how they feel about half of the country that disagrees with them. And their perception of reality is so skewed, so tainted by their own political ideology that they cannot see straight anymore. And the American public is realizing that. I think for a long time, MSNBC was just sort of like grandfathered in as a place you would go to for news. They come off as so official. They appeal to that authority. And you think, okay, well, the news is the news. I gotta listen to it. I gotta catch up. I gotta hear what Rachel Maddow has to say on election night. But now people are realizing not only do these people not have our best interests at heart, they don't care about us. They're not giving us true news. They're giving us their opinion. I don't trust them. And we have alternatives and independent media that we can go to where, you know, you're not my only option anymore. And they were way behind on that realization. It seems like Joy Reid still hasn't even figured it out. And it's going to be, you know, when MSNBC is sold right under their noses, that maybe they figure it out. If it's bought by Elon Musk, oh, you're going to see the rampage of the century of these people just completely reeing out on the internet about how an alt-right fascist bought their news network, if we can even call it that.
And it would be so perfectly ironic as well, because Elon kind of torpedoed the Democrat media machine's control over the entire, information apparatus in this country, over the narratives in this country. We all remember the experts during COVID, and we're the moral authority, compassionate ones on the gender ideology stuff. And when it comes to the border, here's what's really happening. And they were able to kind of maintain this stranglehold with the help of their friends for like Mark Zuckerberg and who have you in big tech and old Twitter. There was this monopoly that they had over the spread of information and over the public narrative and perception. And you felt like you were in the minority if you disagreed. You felt like you weren't allowed to speak up. And now when Elon bought X, he kind of emancipated free speech, and he made one broken link in that chain that they had. And so the idea that he would now come full circle and be the one to purchase MSNBC out from under them is just such a delicious irony. I can't think of a more picture perfect ending for how this would come back.
Yes, and it very well could be happening, and I'll tell you why we think this. So in the past, when everything was going down with Twitter, and the Twitter files were coming out, and people were realizing like this is a sinking ship. Something is really wrong with Twitter. Elon Musk came out and said something along the lines of this: "I love Twitter." Dave Smith says, "You should buy it then." Elon Musk says, "How much is it?" Okay, those 4 words became a really impactful statement. And now with MSNBC tanking and Comcast putting it up for sale, Donald Trump Jr. says, "Hey, Elon Musk, I have the funniest idea ever." And Elon Musk responds, "How much does it cost?" Okay, so you move from 4 words to 5 words, but the message is the same. He's trying to figure out how much MSNBC costs, and this very well could lead to Elon Musk owning now X and MSNBC, plus being a part of Doge and all these different things. Now, I'm very curious to see how this turns out, and I can see why people might be up in arms about this. You're like, he has too much power. He's able to come in and buy all these companies, and these companies are sort of paramount to the American way of life and how we get information and how information travels from point A to point B. But so long as he's being wholesome and abiding by his proposed values and his first principles, I think it's okay. A lot of the left-leaning people who are upset about his ownership of X, they're not upset because he's done anything corrupt with the platform. They're upset because he's opened up the platform for everybody to say their feelings and to share their thoughts. And because they've been living in an echo chamber where they've exercised power over what people can and cannot say, it feels like oppression to them to live in a free society. So if that's what Elon Musk does with MSNBC, and he buys it and he's truly platforming people of all sides, and more importantly than that, making a news organization that's actually giving you news. I'm so sick and tired of every single news platform that you pop on these days. I'm hearing somebody else's opinion about what's going on. I just want somebody to look into camera and tell me the objective facts of the situation, give me true reporting, and not add their little opinion on the back end of it. Now, I'm fine if they have, their opinion shows, or they do the debates, which I think it's really valuable for Americans to hear, and it's really valuable to hear people of differing opinions discuss back and forth and do so in a respectful way. But please, can we get back to like regular news? I know people don't want to watch regular news. It's not exciting. It's not salacious. It doesn't like meet the threshold for us to give it attention. But that's what I would really like to see mixed in with debating and some maybe better personalities than what we got out of Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, and Jen Psaki.
Yeah, and Elon's not this perfect person who's going to rescue us from everything. But at the same time, a network owned by Elon Musk would be closer to something moderate, something in the middle than anything we have right now. Like you have Fox, which clearly has a right bias and a right leaning agenda. And you have virtually every other network, epitomized maybe by MSNBC, that has a very far left leaning disposition. So an X network, or whatever that might look like, would be, at least more interesting somewhere in the middle. Elon's a politically moderate person, even though they call him far right, much like much of Trump's coalition of the cabinet that he's built so far is a lot of former Democrats. So I think it'd be a lot more interesting conversations. And yeah, they'd probably skew toward people who enjoy free speech and are not in this leftist echo chamber. But when that's what you're used to, of course, everything else is going to sound far right. But I texted you this the other day. I'm like, dude, if Elon does buy a network, I mean, hit us up, man. Hit us up. Get Young Turks have been, coming around, being a little more good faith. Get some of the Tucker Carlsons, the Megyn Kellys. Who wouldn't watch a network loaded with some of these like independent creators that are just not being controlled, but just fill up the airtime with some of that. I think that's a great idea personally.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look at Piers Morgan. I mean, he's like one of the fastest growing YouTube shows in existence right now that is covering the topics that he's covering. And it's because he's platforming people of all sides to just come up and have the discussion. And sometimes people with some pretty extreme views end up on his show. That's what people want to see. And there's been this sort of walking on eggshells around what actual people are thinking and refusing to platform that. More so than that, we refuse to platform what we consider to be extreme ideas, when I think the best thing you can do with extreme ideas is platform them and let them out into sun so people can hear them and see what they think about them. And if they're wrong, they'll be told they're wrong right there for everybody to see. So I would be so excited to see MSNBC turn into something like that, and what a win that would be for news, for media, for even entertainment, if that's how you guys are entertaining yourselves these days, because a lot of people are. But so far, it seems like the people at MSNBC might be quaking a little bit. We have this report out of New York Post that Rachel Maddow's salary has reportedly been cut by $5 million, despite being ratings Viagra. I don't know who called her that, as parent company Comcast deals with a difficult time. Now, first of all, she was making $5 million to begin with. I almost choked. Almost choked on my spit when I read that her salary was cut by $5 million. How much was Rachel Maddow making? I've never looked into this. You guys let me know in the chat down below if you knew what her initial salary was before this cut. But my goodness, $5 million to be Rachel Maddow. That is nuts. That explains so much. I'm like, she's been around for quite some time, just doing the same shtick over and over and over again. I mean, for $5 million plus, I sure as shit would be too. That's crazy. $5 million on top of that.
She makes $30 million a year. I just looked it up.
Oh
my gosh.
My gosh. I mean that either you've just like just super like inflated yourself over time, and she's got like a long sort of tenure at MSNBC, so maybe that builds things up. I doubt she goes a year without an increase or a bonus of some sort. But wow, I mean, it speaks to how many people have been watching her. I mean, she is a household name in a lot of ways. I think for Americans who are at least in the political sphere of things. So wow, $30 million. That's crazy, 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 crazy. But of course, we've also been covering other MSNBC hosts. You have Mika and Joe, the two lovers on MSNBC from Morning Joe. Morning Joe delivers lowest rating since 2021 amid lefty meltdown after Trump meeting. So this is interesting. For those of you who have not been recapped on this situation, after Trump won the 2024 election, Mika and Joe, who haven't spoken to Trump in I think they said 7 years because they hate this man so much, even though Mika was just like a little flirter with Donald Trump every single time she was within a mile of this man. I swear she could smell him. Okay. But as soon as everybody started hating on Donald Trump, they distanced themselves, whatever. As he won the 2024 election, they called him up and said, we'd like to meet with you. They go to Mar-a-Lago and they have a meeting with Donald Trump, and they hash out, I guess, some of their concerns and issues that they have with him, his presidency, and his stance. Now, they go on MSNBC on Morning Joe to let people know that they met with Donald Trump. And the meltdown that existed on the other end of this was unbelievable. All these left-leaning figures saying, how dare you sit across from Donald Trump and have a conversation with him? How dare you travel to Mar-a-Lago? How dare you kiss the ring, is how they put it. And this is why MSNBC is tanking. If you are a journalist, even a journalist who at your very core hates Donald Trump more than anybody else on this planet, the best thing you could do for your career and for your own journalistic integrity would be to go meet Donald Trump and air out your grievances to him one-on-one to have the conversation. But they are so blinded by their Trump derangement syndrome that they can't even recognize when a journalist is doing the right thing. So MSNBC has been digging their grave for a long time, and it's actually liberals and leftists who are pushing the hosts into the grave, because they are trying to, crawl out, do the right thing after getting this wake-up call with people voting for Donald Trump and him winning this 2024 election. Even if they're doing it for their own selfish, self-centered, narcissistic reasons, they're doing the right thing in this case. And still, they could not be applauded for it or just generally accepted for going and having a conversation that probably needs to be had. If you're a journalist who's going to be covering politics, it's probably within your best interest to have somewhat of a direct line to Donald J. Trump. But no, you can't even do that. And when I say they dug their grave, a large part of the reason they can't do that is because they spent so much time calling him a fascist and a Nazi and a threat to democracy. And those things weren't true. So when you say a lie enough times that it becomes true, you can't dig yourself out of it when you get a slap in the face on election night. So it's just a wicked story with MSNBC, and we'll see if Elon buys them up.
And you said wake-up call, and I think that's the approach of Mika and Joe toward Trump is kind of evidence that maybe they felt it. But to your point, it's probably too little too late. In fact, it is too little too late because they have burned their credibility by calling him fascist, Hitler, Nazi, and everything over the last years. And so reverse, you're in between a rock and a hard place, because if you double down on the ideology and the message that you're doing, well, no one's listening to that anymore. And if you go crawling back, then no one's going to believe that you're authentic. And so you've made the bed. Now you've got to sleep in it. But it seems like with what we listened to with Joy Reid a moment ago, the wake-up call has not even reached her, and she's still in that double down territory. Don't know really where Rachel Maddow stands, but there's a wake-up call coming in the form of a pay cut for her and the possible acquisition of their entire network. So it just goes to show that it's not a profitable business model to peddle narratives on behalf of the powerful institutions in our country instead of calling them into question, which is what the job of journalists are. And now that ivory tower is crumbling down with the results of this election, what are they left with? And there's really nowhere for MSNBC to go. And I think their present situation is reflective of that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and if Bill O'Reilly's right about all the things that he said in that initial interview that we watched, there are more dominoes to fall on the front end of MSNBC being knocked down. And Elon Musk tweeted out this. He says, the most entertaining outcome, especially if ironic, is most likely. So I think he's saying, like, I'm already trying to figure out whether or not it's possible for me to acquire MSNBC. And Bill O'Reilly said in that initial clip, they will give it to you. It is worth nothing. They are funneling no resources into it. They will pay you to take it. So we'll see if Elon ends up doing that. I imagine there will be people who try to stop him if he is trying to acquire this company, and people who will try to throw a wrench into the whole operation here. So, but Bill O'Reilly says, if MSNBC gets sold out, maybe some of their viewers are going to be funneled over to CNN. CNN is also having a hard time with ratings. We all remember a little while back when they tried to launch CNN Plus, as if we wanted more CNN and if we were willing to subscribe ourselves and pay for it. And then that ended up absolutely flopping. And with CNN could, also be The View gone. It's just crazy.
YouTube channel that no one watches.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, these people are just like flailing, and it's because nobody trusts you anymore, and your bias is really shown. And there are Charlie and Wemby. It's a cacophony in my house.
Sounding their agreement.
Yes, they're signaling their agreement. And they're really signaling their agreement with this next story. We're going to be talking about The View. Now, The View also might be on the chopping block. There are rumors that it's getting canceled. We can read it with this tweet here. Breaking. New leaks indicates that The View is in the process of being canceled. Now, this comes on the heels of a lot of different problems with The View. They're constantly being criticized by folks like us, by independent media. They really are kind of the laughing stock of, what do you even call them? News commentary, I guess is what these women are at this point. I think some of them would have the audacity to refer to themselves as journalists, and that really says all that you need to know about The View. what The View has become is kind of like we hear news the day before and we go, I can't wait to see the women on The View freak out about this. And I can't wait to hear the ridiculous opinions that they share on the other end of this. Now, with that, we have Whoopi Goldberg, who recently accused a Staten Island bakery of political discrimination against her because she didn't get her initial cake order filled by the bakery, although they put in the second one when she didn't put her name on it. Now, this Staten Island bakery has come out and say, we were not discriminating against you. We had a boiler breakdown at our bakery. This has nothing to do with you, baby girl. And it seems like they might be taking legal action against Whoopi Goldberg on the other end of this. Sunny Hostin has now become Sunny Legal Note Hostin, as she has been just spouting off lies and in some cases propaganda on her show and being corrected expeditiously, so much so that they are interrupted in the middle of the show and she has to share a legal note. Let's roll the clip.
How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism, that DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
She's pissed. She's pissed. Thank you, Whoopi. I will read the legal note.
Her face.
It's just, oh my gosh, yeah, she's clearly so over it. And this is like, how many times in a week have you had to do this? Here's another clip of her getting yet another legal note on the show.
Oh, sorry. Legal note. I have a legal note. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations and has not been charged with any crime.
Yep.
Gaetz previously dismissed allegations that he paid for sex, saying that, quote, someone is trying to recategorize my generosity to ex-girlfriends as something more untoward. Another legal note, Pete Hegseth's lawyer said he paid the woman in 2023 to head off the threat of a baseless lawsuit. He has denied any wrongdoing.
Just call the show Legal Note from now on. Or really long music. We'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, no, let's not call the show Legal Note. Let's call it canceled. Bye. If they get canceled, I will be, it's just going to be so amazing to hear. It's been a long time coming. You know, it's not because I dislike that they have different opinions. It's just that they have no integrity in the way that they share their opinions. And they refuse to platform people with dissident opinions. And when they do, they kind of get these like lukewarm conservatives who are in no way, shape, or form a representation of the conservative set of beliefs. And they kind of just like bow down to these four women and just agree or choose not to give the differing argument or opinion on some of the stories that they're covering. So it's just unfortunate what The View has become, and they weren't always this way. They weren't always, you know, the Legal Note View, where they were so blinded by not even their ideology, but their hatred of people who disagree with them. It's the same thing with MSNBC. It's not that you disagree with me. It's that you hate the fact that I disagree with you, and you hate everybody who stands on the other side of the aisle. And that can get you only so far, because you're just going to be tap dancing for the same crowd, shouting out into the void, shouting out into your echo chamber, and your ratings can't grow if that's the case. And they certainly can't grow on the other end of an election where you've just been told really to just tone it down a little bit. And you've been told that you're not on base here. And you all know, like 3 years ago, they were looking for a conservative voice on The View, and they ended up getting an email, and they wanted to interview. So I went through, I think, 2 rounds of interviews and immediately knew, like, you are actually not looking for a conservative guest to be on this show. They were asking me, you know, whether or not I felt like I could distance myself from Donald Trump as a conservative, you know, given the nature of who he is, given his mouth. They were asking how I felt about January 6th, and clearly we're looking for somebody who was going to distance themselves from sort of like the Trumpian, like MAGA elements of conservatism that, you know, whether you like it or not, are just a part of politics right now and are going to be, you know, for the next 4 years and probably far beyond that with the impact that he's had on the American electorate. More so than that, they were like, you have to get vaccinated in order to even be on this show. So they tried to force a mandate. I mean, who in their right mind is going to be like the conservative voice who's willing to abide by your mandate to be on your show and sit across from these women and give their lukewarm opinion that gets talked over for who knows how long. So it never ended up panning out. They said on the other end of this election that they were yet again looking for a conservative host to come and sit down with these women. Haven't heard anything else about it. Haven't heard who they've been interviewing or who they've been in the process of checking out, but we might not even get that far, as there are rumors that they're going bye-bye. And I think for good reason. I wonder where these careers go on the other end of this. Like, where does Joy Behar or Sunny Hostin or Whoopi Goldberg go? Do they head to another news organization? Do they try to get like some sort of like spin-off show? Do they fall into obscurity and sort of do the Ellen DeGeneres and just fall off the face of the earth and move to where, I don't know where she's at now, Spain or something like that?
Canada or Europe?
UK? I don't know. She went somewhere.
Yeah, UK.
She went somewhere because of this election, she claims. Is that what these women do? I don't know.
No. Yeah, and they go to Blue Sky maybe and start a Blue Sky streaming channel for that echo chamber.
Right.
Yeah, it's they were so entrenched in their ways that I don't think it would work if they brought in somebody, because it's so that actually has a backbone and that can make the argument. And yeah, I can't even tell which person is supposed to be the conservative if you watch most of these The View clips these days, and it gives me a similar vibe to while you're talking, I was thinking of late night television as well. It's also become this echo chamber clapter thing where whether you're watching Seth Meyers or Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon or who's the other one? Oh gosh. Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing, the same tone and tenor. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel, I think, cried on election night, and he's cried several times over things. And it's not even about humor. It's not about the assignment of providing a comedic relief for Americans at the end of their long, busy workday, like it once was, that appealed to everybody. You dish it out equally to both sides. It's just become this, echo chamber and spewing that same hate that Bill O'Reilly was talking about, this vitriol and disdain for people who vote differently from you and don't support your narrative. And what we found out is that those people with this election are actually the ones in the minority. They're the ones that are not normal. They're the ones that are small. And now it's being shown that it's no longer profitable to keep up this institution. There's nothing there. There's no public support for it. So I have a feeling we're going to continue to see things trend in this direction so long as they continue to double down on what they've been doing.
Yeah, it's like you can believe what you want to believe, but you better keep it cute. And they have not been keeping it cute recently. I mean, with the Staten Island Bakery, with the not one, not two, not three legal notes that Sunny Hostin has found herself in.
Brittany Mahomes.
Brittany Mahomes, coming after Brittany Mahomes and her family, and the backlash that you received on the other end of that. I think Whoopi Goldberg said recently that you can't be a part of Trump's cabinet if you don't have a sexual assault allegation of some sort. So they're really like going out ahead of themselves. And I wonder if part of this is maybe that they know they're getting canceled. And, that's sort of like, when you're going out, that last ditch effort to just sort of thrust all the rest of the energy you have in your body out into the world before you give it that last breath. Maybe that's what we're dealing with them. And they're just really swinging out because they know, the show's getting canceled. It doesn't matter anymore. Or this is just the logical conclusion of people who are consumed with this ideology, and you just naturally crash out if these are the things that you believe about the world. I don't know what it is, but if the business is true and they're getting canceled, I am so curious to see what the last episode of The View looks like, and most certainly what these careers look like on the other end of cancellation.
I will say I will be a little bit sad just because how much fun have we had reacting to a lot of their craziness over the years? Like, it's been like you just know The View's going to come out with something crazy about this, or MSNBC Joy Reid is going to, give us another crazy clip to react to. So, I guess selfishly for the entertainment value of that and the views we get off of it, but we'll be all right.
Woo.
There'll be plenty.
If we lose MSNBC, guys, it's been another quiet day. It's been another quiet day in the news. I don't know if we have much to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll continue to be more, but I would still be relieved that we don't have their insanity to talk about. We can talk about more important things.
Yes, 100%. Now we're going to move on to this bathroom debate that has again been resparked with everything that's happening at the U.S. Capitol. You have Representative Sarah McBride, who is a transgender woman. I think used to be Tim McBride, I think is the original name, the dead name, if you will, who's been going toe-to-toe with Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace says no biological men in the bathroom. I don't care what you identify as. I don't care who you are. And she's made that her sort of campaign of the moment, and it was a successful one. There will no longer be biological males who are allowed to use the women's bathroom in the U.S. Capitol. Everybody will go to the bathroom of their biological sex. So this has created much debate. And we actually have a view clip of them talking about it with Hakeem Jeffries. So let's run that.
Every congressperson has a bathroom in every congressperson has a bathroom in their office. So she's got a bathroom she can use in her office. And I'm sure she can use your bathroom and the bathroom of every Democrat and every person who's not a bigot in the United States Congress.
We have bathrooms here. In this building, it just says all genders.
Yeah.
Why can't they just do that everywhere?
Yeah, there are all gender bathrooms in many of the Capitol office buildings, not necessarily in the Capitol itself, but we're going to work through that
Renovate.
Okay, so they want all gender bathrooms. Also, what? Every single congressperson has a personal bathroom? Doge! Get Elon, get Vivek, get him in here. I'm seeing some cuts here. My tax dollars are going to each and every one of y'all having a personal bathroom. Oh,
but if we close the border, who's going to clean the bathrooms, Amala?
Right, who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, that's an answer. You know, we've seen that. The sort of argument for the unisex, single stall bathroom. Fine. Whatever solves the issue and whatever keeps these predatory men out of the bathroom, and that is not a dig at Sarah McBride. Sarah McBride seems like a somewhat well-adjusted individual who is abiding by the rules that have been stated on the other end of this Mace debate and the back and forth here. But for obvious reasons, I don't want biological males in the bathroom. So if you solve that by having unisex bathrooms or all gender bathrooms or single stall bathrooms or a bathroom where you go and you lock it on the other end and then nobody else goes in there with you, sure. Whatever you have to do. I'm sure they're wasting our tax dollars elsewhere. Elon and Vivek will come in, cut and strip and tie back together, and maybe you'll have some extra funding to fix the bathroom problem. Maybe you can get rid of the apparently personal bathrooms that every single congressperson has and fix the bathroom problem on your own. I mean, it's just amazing that these are the issues that are going back and forth in our news cycle right now. AOC had something to say about it. Let's roll the clip.
It's disgusting, and everybody, no matter how you feel on this issue, should reject it completely. What are they doing? They're doing this so that Nancy Mace can make a buck and send a text and fundraise off an email. They're not doing this to protect people. They're endangering women. They're endangering girls of all kinds, and everybody should reject it. It's gross. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, there's actually a little point in there where I don't disagree with AOC. There is something about Nancy Mace. And I can clock it in somebody when they're giving me likes to be the center of attention. They're giving me likes to be on camera. She makes sure her little fur coat is on every single time the news media is running around her trying to debate her on this issue or bring this up. And she does give me a little bit of that energy. And with how politics is these days, especially here in the United States of America, I can't imagine she's not getting a little bit of benefit outside of the sort of crusade for women being able to have their personal space. So I'll give her room on that. She says that they're endangering young women and girls. I'm wondering, how? Who's that? How so? Who is she referring to? I mean, the only logical, it's illogical, but the only logical way that I can think through that on her, she's talking about the trans girls and women are possibly being endangered by having to go to the bathroom of their biological sex, but I'm not quite figuring out what she means by women and girls are being endangered. But, AOC is not one that I typically turn to have the best take on these issues, and still it stands. I think I feel for trans identified individuals who are really like struggling with their identity. And one of the ways that they feel like they can affirm this like sort of struggle that they're going through is going to the right bathroom. And I can totally grant that once you're at a certain stage in your transition, you kind of pass a point where it doesn't really make sense to go to the bathroom of your biological sex. And that's something that you sort of have to grapple with. But I kind of view it the same way I view sports. You know, you are now dealing with a luxury problem. That's how I refer to this stuff. I mean, it's a problem nonetheless, but a luxury problem. It's a problem of the first world. It's a problem of developed nations. And you've taken on this identity, and you've incurred the risk that exists on the other end of taking on that identity. And where you now get to live in your most authentic self, apparently, maybe you don't get to play sports anymore, at least not in the category of your choosing. And the same way with the bathroom. You've taken on this identity. You've chosen to take on the risk associated with this identity in more ways than just whatever sports is involved or bathrooms are involved. And now you have to navigate this issue. And there are going to be women who feel strongly about your presence in their bathroom, and you should defer to them, not to yourself, because you've created a problem virtually out of thin air that our society has now been dealing with, and you're burdening other people with the struggle that you are personally having with your identity. And I feel for you. I don't wish the struggle on anybody. I would never want to be sitting in my body right now and truly deeply been thinking in myself, I think I'm a man, or I think I need to get this surgery, or I think I need to change this about myself. But I'm sorry. You have to deal with all of the problems associated with this identity that you are now taking on. And it's not for you to enter a woman's space and tell them how to think and feel about you being there now that you've assumed this new identity.
Yeah, this isn't about singling out any specific person. It is about a principle, and it's about truth. And we have to make policies for bathrooms for sports. We have to make laws that are grounded in objective reality. And when we make something grounded in subjectivism and that's completely about relativism, then we are necessarily then creating loopholes, creating circumstances under which people can, who are not ill intentions. We're not saying that Sarah McBride is an ill-intentioned person who's going to assault someone. Right. I don't think that's the insinuation. It's that granting a principle based on the subjective relative idea that gender is whatever you express it to be, that is what creates that loophole. So we just have to stand on principle. And the unfortunate part of that is that you who happen to have this dysphoria is someone who has to figure that out for yourself. But the alternative is that we adapt the principle to your individual needs and then compromise the safety of women everywhere. And that shouldn't be an option. And honestly, it seems difficult to say, but like, shouldn't you want, if like your access to a bathroom compromises the safety of other women, wouldn't you rather say, okay, no, don't give me that access because I don't want to open that up to other people who, unlike me, are ill-intentioned and can take advantage of, going into the bathroom under false pretenses in order to gain access to women in a vulnerable space. I would think that if you are so compassionate and such a well-meaning person, that you'd be able to say, okay, I understand, I'll take the L here. And to her credit, like, it seems like that's what Sarah McBride kind of decided to do when the issue was raised, kind of said, okay, I'll table this. I'm not going to fight it necessarily, even though I disagree with it. But yeah, I think, of all people, you yourself should be the one that is saying, yeah, I actually do want to protect women. So that's the part that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because it points out the gender differences, and it points out the gender differences that women can so clearly see when you have a male who's trying to identify as a woman. There are things that there are parts of the female experience that you just simply cannot get access to without being born a female. And part of that is the understanding of the power dynamic that exists between men and women, the physical dynamic that exists between men and women, the advantage that men have over us, this sort of inherent censor that we have for men being in our space for a multitude of reasons. And it's not because we constantly need to be, looking out for bad men and men are horrible. It's just that we need to be aware of where we stand in things. We're aware of our power and how little we have in certain instances. And that's just a radar that I think women almost constantly have on. So when you're a man who's like suddenly come to identify as a woman and you're like changing your hair and you're getting the surgeries and you're wearing dresses now, there is nothing that makes you understand that power difference. There is nothing that puts you in the mindset of a woman. There is nothing that translates that suddenly is like a light bulb understanding of how women are constantly functioning through the world on any given day. So you think you can just waltz into a female's bathroom where we're all there. And honestly, like, even on a smaller sense, there's like something about the women's bathroom. Like we are there, we're like talking to one another, we have our moments, like friendships are being born in the women's bathroom. And then you come in with male energy, because whether you like it or not, that is what you have. It's noticed immediately. And we cannot always assess whether or not you are a threat or somebody who is just there to do their business. So why do you want to put that burden on women who, like, in this one space, men are not allowed? Like, we can just go in there, use the bathroom, do our thing, and now you want to enter it. And you have to wonder, like, it seems like Sarah McBride, for the most part, is a well-adjusted person who means no harm, who is not trying to do anything to women in the bathroom, and that can live and exist in this argument. But there are men and trans-identifying men who are now calling themselves women who get off on the idea of dressing as a woman and being in a female space. You guys can look up AGP, autogynephilia. These are men whose initial introduction to womanhood and to the trans identity is actually a sexual fetish. And they enjoy dressing up as women. And more so than that, they enjoy the thrill and the chase of being accepted into women's spaces or to entering women's spaces or delving deeper into the lifestyle of womanhood, this sort of like cosplaying of womanhood. So I don't want that in my bathroom. I also don't want to have the question of whether or not that's something in my bathroom. Like, why does the burden now fall on me to have to work through and analyze these situations when in the past I could have just gone into the bathroom? And most definitely, if a male was in there, I knew something was up. I knew something was wrong. We get out of the situation and we deal with it. But now you're like leaving it up to question, and we have to go back and forth over this, and anybody can just go anywhere. And true victims exist on the other end of this. It's not just the mental burden that now exists for women because you decided you were one of us and you can't be. And I think even women who are like pro-trans, somewhere deep inside your psyche, there has to be an understanding that there are parts of the female experience that can simply never be adopted by somebody who did not live it. There's no amount of like reading, understanding, nothing. And we can try to like live in people's shoes, and that is part of human existence. And we try to analyze things and see things from another perspective, and we do so to the best of our abilities. But there's just a whole nother thing to live it. Just like I will never understand what it truly feels like to be gender dysphoric and feel like you're built and born into the wrong body. But I can certainly understand that you'll never be 100% attached to the female experience. And that's not to like exclude you or try to push you out. It's just the simple reality of the matter. But people don't want this. And people don't want to accept that. And they'd rather allow for like men to just like cosplay. And it's one thing if you want to do it, and you're an adult and you want to lead this lifestyle, lead the lifestyle. But as soon as it starts to infringe on mine, I'm setting up the wall and I'm setting up the barrier. But most interestingly, the people who are pushing this forward and allowing for this to happen is almost unanimously women. Women are the ones who are allowing this to happen to our spaces. And that's a part of the argument that we're not often talking about. And it just blows my mind. And I think it's the sort of access that we have to our compassion and this nurturing nature that we have that doesn't really accurately allow us in a lot of ways to assess a threat and recognize that it is a threat in a lot of ways, and more so than just our bathrooms being taken over by individuals who should not be there. Katie Couric responded to the bathroom debate. This is what she had to say.
Hey, everyone. I'm just so disappointed that this Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, is being so rude and I don't know, just bigoted against Sarah McBride, who is a new congressperson from the state of Delaware. I know Sarah. She is the first openly transgender member of Congress, and she's an extraordinary human being, has done a great job representing the people of Delaware and is now going to be doing it in Washington. And it just seems nasty and mean and cruel because she is the only member who is now forbidden to use the ladies' room. And it's just shitty, you know? Anyway, I just wanted to say that. I asked Sarah if she wanted to do an interview. She hasn't gotten back to me. But
okay, she doesn't know. That's the end of her statement there. You know, interestingly enough, if I had any criticism for Nancy Mace, it is maybe the way that she talks about the issue that she's trying to confront here. And as I said, I can see the narcissism in this woman and how she feels like very at home at the front of the camera, sort of taking on this thing. And she's like posting pictures online of her like drinking wine and saying it's like leftist tears and stuff like that. And I hate that shit. I hate that shit because it's like, this is a real issue with real victims on the other end of it. Nancy Mace herself is a rape survivor, as she claims. So make it about the issue. Don't make it about yourself. Don't make it like this posturing that you can now do because you've been the one to confront it. And it really doesn't even need to be made about Sarah McBride. I think the most compassionate yet level-headed and logical way you could go about this issue is to say, straight to camera, this is not about Sarah McBride. You know, Sarah McBride may have opened up this issue because it led to a realization that this is a problem that we're going to have to confront down the line. And Sarah McBride just so happens to be the first person that has sparked this thought for me that I may have to worry about biological males being in my bathroom. I'm sure Sarah McBride is a very safe person. I've had no weird run-ins with Sarah McBride. She's not personally done anything to me. But we have to confront this issue before it comes a larger one, and before people who are not Sarah McBride end up victimizing women. And I'm choosing to make that stance now out of, you know, a view of my own safety, out of precaution in that sense, and for the safety of other women. That's really all you need to say. But instead, it's becoming this huge thing about like a penis that, and you know, she's actually a man and all this stuff. It doesn't need to be all that. It's very simple what we're advocating for.
And as you're talking, this kind of popped in my head. It seems like, you know, you could broadly categorize two sort of maybe evolved or, you know, evolutionary psychology impulses in the female psyche, one of which would be like the heightened threat sensitivity that you talked about, of like girls have this sense of like, okay, in the bathroom, is there a threat here? Like you just know, and you have that, and there's a reason for that, because you're physically smaller, physically weaker, just on a biological level than males. You have to have a certain like heightened awareness that just makes sense. But then on the other end, you have this heightened sense of compassion. And that is to evolutionarily advantageous, because if women are compassionate, then, you know, there's not going to be that willingness to deal with a child and make sure that it survives when it is crying, when it's not convenience or whatever. So it's that, like, you know, extra compassionate nature that helps to ensure that we have child survival. But what seems like in this issue, you have those two innate impulses kind of clashing with one another, where on the one hand you have this hyper sense of compassion that's sort of saying, oh well, we need to be compassionate and you know, take care of the immediate feelings of trans people, because that is what is the imminent thing right now. I have to, you know, stop the baby crying, because that is the immediate threat, that's the immediate problem that we have to worry about right now. So let's stop that and help and, you know, cater to the trans people. But on the other side, you have women who are feeling this, like, I am feeling the actual threat of physical men in my spaces and encroaching in our locker rooms and bathrooms and things like that. And that is logically the more, you know, broader one and the stronger one. But you can see, like, it's women who happen to, because you raise the question, like, why is it women who are the ones who tend to be advocating for, you know, trans women to be in women's bathrooms? And I think that it's those who are leaning more into, or maybe they're feeling more of that impulse toward the compassion rather than the threat. Somehow that's overcoming the, like, threat heightenedness. So I don't know how well I laid that out there, but that's my little armchair, you know, evolutionary psychology analysis on this. Just kind of occurred to me while you were talking. Yeah, no, so I thought I'd throw it in there.
I hear you for sure. It's just like these two things are actively working against each other in the way that our brains work. And I can feel these things when those things start to, like, go awry, and like my female sensibilities are sometimes taking me in the wrong direction. You can you have to, like, adjust for that, and, like, adjust for when your emotions are overwhelming you. And of course, we spoke about Laken Riley earlier on the show this week. And I can't help but, like, continuously go back to her story and everything that was happening there. And at the same time of, like, her life being taken by an illegal immigrant, the large, you know, the vast majority of the people who are leading the charge for our borders to be open are women. And it's like this compassion that we have for people who are like seeking opportunity in this country completely overrides what should be like this innate threat warning of we don't know who's coming into our country and how this is going to impact us. And I've listened to so much of the Laken Riley case and what was taking place in court. And you had a young woman in Laken who was doing everything correct. I mean, she had the watch on her arm to keep track of exactly where she was. She was running in the daytime, presumably when there were other people around. She was letting people know where she was at any given moment. She told her roommate she was going out for a run. Her friends knew when she was going out for her run. And she was so like in contact with people and in touch with those around her that 4 minutes before her heart stopped beating, her mother was calling her, like wondering where she was, trying to get a hold of her, and had called her multiple times thereafter, after this vicious, 18-minute attack ensued. And she ended up losing her life for not wanting to be sexually assaulted and raped by Jose Ibarra. And that's like what women often have to deal with. Like that's just something that we have to assess and something that we have to constantly be on the lookout for. And then when you think about like on the other end of it, there are just women pushing for these ideologies and these regulations and laws that are actively fighting against us and our safety. It just really blows my mind to hear about it. And then I'm seeing all these people on TikTok because Laken's going viral on TikTok across the aisle right now for just everything that she went through and for the closing out of this trial. And people are saying that like she shouldn't be, politicized in this way, even though her family is actively going to Trump rallies and advocating that we change what's going on in this country on the other end of it. And it's just like how the compassion that you're feeling for like people that could very well harm you is just overriding what you should really be feeling right now and what you should really be understanding. And it's not to mean that you should cut off your compassion for people who mean you no harm. It's just to be that I think you have a hard time figuring out now who does and who doesn't mean you harm because you've just blanketed everything and your ideology is just like an umbrella that's cast over everything. And it's just so unfortunate that these are the things that exist on the other end of it. And where Nancy Mace is fighting this bathroom battle, trust behind, her seemingly narcissistic tendencies and her sort of grandiose sense of self, there are actual victims that exist on the other end of what she's fighting and advocating for. So hopefully we'll see what happens. She says she's going to continue to fight this for all federal grounds. And I applaud that. And I think we should move forward in that direction. And, it's not to say that if you're a trans person, you're like passing as like a female, like I want to go after you and prosecute you for like using a bathroom that I don't think you should be in. And there's plenty of gray area in that, as we've discussed. I wouldn't want Blair White going to the men's bathroom, but we need to have these discussions in a way that I think prioritizes the protection of women first, and then the comfort of people who are in the midst and in the throes of transition second or third, because there's more important things, I think, to worry about. Guys, we've covered the important issues. Now we're going to talk about the less important stuff. Now, Wicked's been coming out, and in the midst of a very uncomfortable PR tour that we've been witnessing with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, where they are crying everywhere and all up on each other and just making weird statements and being whatever it is they are in this iteration of their divahood, people have been heading to the theaters, and before watching Wicked, the Snow White trailer is playing. Now, this is the Disney live-action Snow White that is supposed to be coming out in 2025, starring Rachel Zegler as the fairest of them all. And there's been a lot of controversy. Rachel Zegler said that this new version of Snow White was going to be more feminist. She's going to be a girl boss. She's going to save herself. The prince doesn't save her, which is really the plot of the original Snow White. So I'm not sure how it's going to measure up. She's come out against Trump supporters, saying that Trump supporters should never know peace after the 2024 election, which is just an insane thing to say. She also said a big fuck you to Donald Trump and to those who support him. So she's been really active out there on the PR trail, shall we call it. And it seems like people have been coming after her. Maybe even some Disney executives said like, hey, we cannot allow this to happen, especially for somebody who's supposed to be the fairest of them all. She can't be saying things like this on the internet, because she did come out and apologize after her whole post went viral. We know she doesn't mean it. She said she was in the throes of an emotional reaction to this election, but I doubt it. I think we got to see how she truly felt, as we've been seeing how she truly feels in a political sense all throughout her very short career in Hollywood. Mind you, she has not been here for long, but it has been a meteoric rise. And Snow White now has a trailer. It's been playing before the Wicked movie. If you've gotten a chance to see it, we're going to react to some of it right here, right now.
A place of fairness, like the Queen. Change everything. Take him away, Your Majesty.
What did you say?
The people need some kindness.
You know, I really don't remember you being this opinionated.
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all?
Famed is thy beauty, Majesty. But the lovely maiden I now behold.
I look at you, and I just want to be the fairest of them all.
The Queen is evil. You must flee into the woods.
My parents always said this forest was a magical place.
The CGI, I can't. I mean, I just have to say, like, isn't the point of live action that you're like bringing to life what we would have seen in animation prior? And now they're just giving all of it to us in CGI, which, like, fair. I don't know how well they can pull off like the whole trained animal element of it, but please.
Hello? Is there anybody here? What did you think I was?
Nothing goes. You'll be safe from the Queen here.
The Queen stole everything from all of us.
I'm gonna need your help.
It's time to restore our kingdom.
Find Snow White.
This is our kingdom, and now we're here to take it back.
You were saying?
I'm sorry, my dear. Did I frighten you?
So there you go. That's your new Snow White, and you can already sort of feel it. Can you feel it, guys? Can you feel the girl bossification of Snow White? I mean, in the original Snow White, as I'm a major fan of the first animated version of this film, Snow White is just like a little teensy, 13-year-old girl who is, very demure, very mindful. She's got a strength to her, but it's a strength that is very much like juxtaposed with the femininity that you can feel deep within her. And she like carries this femininity with her, especially when she's met with these 7 dwarves who are very masculine and, edgy and abrasive, and they're living in an untidy home, and she comes in and brings the femininity, and with the femininity, it brings balance to these men, and they build a relationship with her and decide to help her. And the very same you can see with the prince, who is just so enamored by this like ultra feminine presence that exists in Snow White. I think we got like 2 seconds of the prince in this trailer. So who knows? Rachel Zegler said in her original sort of PR touring that she was doing on the subject of this film that the prince might be cut totally because he's not even important. And he's a stalker anyways. He was a stalker in the initial Snow White, not somebody who was enamored and in love with Snow White, but a stalker. So he might just get cut from this movie after all. And it seems like that might just be the case given that we got 2 seconds of him in the trailer. Now we get to see the 7 dwarves, who are now the 7 CGI dwarves. Originally, they were the 7 magical diversity hires, and we had like all these different adults of various ages and races with one, I believe, a little person. One person with dwarfism, and now they're just completely cut. There will be no dwarf actors at all working on this film. And in a live action, which means we're supposed to translate from animation to real life people, we are getting just overproduced CGI dwarves that look, I don't know, very strange in my opinion. And they're now going to dance around Snow White, which means, presumably, where this would have been like a live action interpretation of Snow White, she probably spent a lot of time just with green screen and little figures and talking to nothing there. Oftentimes they use tennis balls. I think that's what they used in The Little Mermaid as she was speaking to the different fish and sea creatures. So, I mean, it seems like it's going to be a lot of that. And I can't help but think that translates in the way that you act, because you don't have anybody to really bounce energy off of. You're just sort of marking and doing what needs to be done in order for the scene to translate once they computer generate everything that you're actually going to be dealing with on screen. So I don't have high hopes. Wow, thank you. Dad joke. For this movie upon seeing the trailer. And I don't know that I should, given that Rachel Zegler has at every moment where she could sabotage herself before this film coming out, chosen to do exactly that by attacking the fan base. If anybody was really going to love a live action Snow White, it would have been conservative individuals who have a love for Disney and have a love for that sort of traditional masculine feminine framework that was presented in the original Snow White's animation. And now that's gone and it's been stripped away, and people were already upset about that. But she chose to really just like drive the nail into the metaphorical coffin in going forward in doing this. And of course, there's the obvious question, like, how are they going to figure out the kiss and the meeting of the prince and the apparent stalking that he does in the initial film? Because a lot of the leftist posturing surrounding Snow White initially was over that non-consensual kiss that exists at the end. That even if you are unconscious and going to die, if you don't get a kiss from this man, him kissing you without somehow waking you from your unconscious state to ask you if he can save your life, if he doesn't do that, it's non-consensual. He's sexually assaulting you. That was the initial complaint about Snow White. How they're going to sum that up and fix it, I have no idea. Please, please, please don't make it something where she's like asking him, or like it's her. She's the one who actually makes the kiss happen in the end. I don't know. It's going to be strange, whatever it is, though. And I can't imagine they're going to leave that in its original state for this live action remake.
And speaking of high hopes, it looks like a lot of y'all do not have high hopes either for this film. I asked, will you be seeing the live action Disney Snow White? 96% are saying no, 4% say yes, which I know we've probably got like a skewed audience here, but I just have a feeling this is going to completely flop. And I think you're right. They're abandoning the classic, story framework for this girl bossified version. People are tired of that. People are tired of live action remakes generally. I think I just saw they're making like a live action Moana. It's like we've talked about the just lack of creativity at Disney. I mean, it's tough because every time they do make a new movie that's original, it's kind of following the same woke narratives that are actually unoriginal because they're pre-scripted to follow this woke ideology. And then anything that they make as a remake, they inject that same ideology into, so you just get a mess either way. And I think that's why they're floundering and failing. But something interesting, I think I remember hearing Jonathan Peugeot, who's Jordan Peterson's friend, who's really into like symbolism and meaning and stories and stuff, was talking about the original Snow White, and he framed it as like a coming of age story for young women, and talking about, I don't remember all the details, but basically I remember he talked about like the dwarves kind of symbolizing like lesser men that aren't like worthy of a young woman as she's like coming into her own, and the prince represents the man that you want, the man who's going to be of the quality that you want to end up with, if you're going to end up with anyone. And that's a big part of that storytelling, is like, not finding a prince who just admires you because you're such an awesome girl boss, but a prince who is actually someone who's qualified, who's of the status and of the like standing on his own 2 feet, who's not this little dwarf of a man that is going to simp over you for nothing, but somebody who's actually, you know, going to be of the caliber that you want, because you're the princess that deserves something like that, to be made it, you know, to find a prince caliber person. So people get all, you know, bent out of shape over like, oh, the man rescuing you from all this stuff. But it's like, it's a fundamental aspect of human nature that in order for humanity to persist, men and women need to find each other in romantic relationships. We should have, you know, it's cultural narratives that help facilitate that in a healthy way. And I think that the original Snow White is reflective of, you know, wisdom that we've borne out. Now, obviously it has certain things that maybe, yeah, are perhaps dated for this time, but that fundamental truths of like, you know, yeah, you need to vet a man and make sure he's a good type of guy and not settle for lesser ones. Like, I think that's a pretty good message. And there's a lot of other stuff in there about like older women, you know, resenting younger women for their beauty and not wanting to let go of theirs. And there's so much profundity in the original stories, which go back before Disney, by the way, in like the 1800s and Grimm's fairy tales. I don't know if this was Grimm in particular, but you know, there's a lot of profundity to this stuff. And to just, you know, take all of the actual substance and merit of that centuries of history and value and development of these ideas, and then to just use that as like lipstick of the pig of your ideology is pretty low. And I think that the ratings will reflect that.
Dude, I could yap about Snow White for like 10 years, and I'm going to continue right now on the stream because it's the last chance. You know, the trailer's out. This is it. The original Snow White that Walt Disney created was like an hour and 23 minutes, and he made it with like $1.5 million. And he went into debt trying to create this like first animated feature to really hit the screen. Now you have like a Snow White that's probably going to be like 2 hours plus. Like everything that's being created today is like far too long, but completely lacking in substance. And they take like $200-300 million and they sink it into these projects and they get no return on it. And you watch it, and this is supposed to be like a live action iteration, and it's so lifeless in comparison to what we got just decades and decades and decades ago from a studio that was just literally just pasting these animations out and working with pretty rudimentary technology to get these films out. And it's just devastating to see the change. And if you're watching the original Snow White and thinking this is not feminist in any way, shape, or form, I just don't know what movie we're watching. We're not watching the same thing. Every single like major plot driver in the original Snow White is female. You have the evil queen, who is like this all-powerful, albeit very much lacking in character, female force. You have the little evil witch that she turns into to give the apple to Snow White, which is like the catalyst of so much within the story. And then you have Snow White herself, who is just a powerful little teenager who's driving this story along and is the force for good that exists throughout this entire film. And she's met with a lot of turmoil and transgression. I mean, the film starts with her nearly being killed by a huntsman, which is not like this patriarchal version of man. It's a pretty evil thing. It's a man who ends up actually regretting this. He tries to kill Snow White with a dagger. Snow White gets away from this guy and runs off. And this guy is actually like brought down and devastated by the fact that he was so manipulated by the evil queen that he would go and do this to a little girl. So it's not like this ultra masculine, patriarchal, we love man film by any means. She shows up to see the 7 dwarves, and she's like, yo, your house is disgusting. She's like, your house is disgusting. I'm gonna fix this up. You guys don't know what you're doing. I'm gonna make you some food. Like, how are you living in squalor right now? And there's 7 of you. And mind you, the 7 dwarves, they don't have particularly kind names. This was like sleepy, dopey, you know, these are not, again, like peak masculine, we love men characters by any means. They're people who need a lot of development, and a child far younger than them ends up showing up in their life and teaching them like how to build connection, how to take care of themselves, how to cook, and what that looks like. And she asserts herself and is like, hey, I'm gonna stay here. I don't know what you want me to tell you, but I'm running away from a huntsman. This bitch is trying to kill me. I'm gonna chill in your house. And they go on, and just like the reason that people help Snow White is because of her character, and because they're so enamored by like this ultra feminine woman who's also strong but young and is carrying all this on her back and dealing with so much. So how you watched that film and thought, he kissed her without his consent. This is not feminist enough for me. Oh my gosh, she needs to be saved by a man. This is not feminist enough for me. The reason she even makes it to the point of being saved by anybody is because her character and strength is just like so overwhelming and so powerful that it moves grown men to search for her, look for her, and fight for her. And people go, that's not feminist enough. That we need to girl bossify her. She needs to save herself. Okay, well, good luck saving yourself. Like, good luck building community in a world where everybody saves themselves and women are all powerful. And I mean, good luck when you're met with the reality that that's not the case. And a 13-year-old girl, no matter how strong and wonderful and powerful she is, cannot often save herself when fighting against a literal evil regime that is sending huntsmen out to kill her with daggers. But please, live in your leftist utopia where everybody's a girl boss and the 13-year-old can save herself. I just don't know what to tell you. As I said, I can yap about Snow White for a very long time. It doesn't make sense.
You're nailing it. Yeah. And if there's a through line maybe in today's stories, it's like if the same way The View, the MSNBC have kind of continued pushing their ideology that's out of touch with understanding their assignment of just doing journalism or doing a daytime talk show that doesn't have, this vitriolic agenda. Disney is hopefully learning the same lesson when this movie flops like many of their other recent projects have. And we'll get to y'all super chats in a minute, but I saw this one come in legitly spelunking, said, Snow White will pull a Frozen. It's her one true love that will wake her, becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Right.
And one of the songs you saw in the trailer, she says like, becoming who I'm meant to be, or was in the lyrics of the song that she's singing. And that's what Rachel Zegler said. She's like, it's not about being saved by the prince. It's about becoming the leader that she knows she can be. And oh my gosh, to just girl bossify and dumb down the actual depth and richness of the story as you're laying out to something so inane is Disney's got it coming. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it just sucks. And we had a $50 super chat. I'll read that from Josh. He says, hi, Amala and Taylor. I've been watching you since you were with PragerU. Thank you for giving me the information to fight for my beliefs. As someone who lives in Arizona, close to the border, I fear for my mother and sister ending up like Laken Riley. Yeah, I mean, I spent a good amount of time yesterday just like listening to the hearing that was taking place in Jose Ibarra's trial. And it's just... It's one thing to sort of hear the story and you hear the story and you go, oh my gosh, that's awful. And it really sits with you what's happened to this girl. It's another thing to just hear the details of how everything played out, and nothing prepares you for hearing that. Again, the body cam footage of her mother finding out that she is deceased is just unbelievable. They had the person who performed her autopsy come up and run through every single injury that had been amassed in this fight that she had against him, while this guy is just sitting there listening to it. And I think this was an accident, but they of course filmed everything that was happening in the trial as they were going through her autopsy. Somebody actually flashes a photo of what she looked like that you can see briefly on the screen. You're not prepared for what she looked like after everything that she was put through. And at the end of this trial, when her family and her roommate and her friends are addressing the court, sort of talking about the impact that she's had on her life, this guy doesn't even have his headset on. He doesn't speak English. He doesn't have his headset on while the family and the friends of Laken Riley are addressing the court. It's just so disgusting. I mean, and I think people are realizing across the aisle, like, her name is not going to be forgotten. And people are, doing this whole thing where they're waiting for 18 minutes or running for 18 miles in the name of Laken Riley, because that's what she experienced, 18 minutes of just sheer and utter torture. And to think that there's going to be more of that happens. I mean, we had a case today, and I forget out of which state, of yet another rape victim, and a rape victim to an illegal migrant who made it into this country through, the obvious means at which all these people are coming through. And more victims exist on the other end of it. There will be more Laken Rileys so long as we do not do something about this. So it's very, very, very unfortunate. We are going to get into the rest of your super chats, guys, and hear from you guys on this.
Alrighty, let's do. Yeah, it was super powerful when you said do anything for 18 minutes today. And as I was cutting the clip to post out on the channel, which if you didn't see our coverage of that, you can go back and watch. But that clip was about 15 minutes long. And just to think, if you watch that at normal speed and then wait 3 more minutes, like that's the amount of time that she was engaged in that, like, just horrific altercation. And you're right that, like, we were talking about the compassion earlier, but as difficult as it is to hear about what she endured and hear how heinous that encounter was, like, I think that is what people need to be faced with in order to really understand what true compassion is. It's not about, opening the border because that's the nice thing to do to give people opportunity, if you're not also putting into the math of that equation the heinous and insane consequences that also brings in. And it's not compassionate when you're creating real victims through that, as you're doing a much worse evil, and you need to confront and be faced with what your weaponized compassion has created. And that's true compassion, is compassion for the victims and their families. Yep. So anyway, we'll hopefully shift gears a little bit here with some of these super chats, but thank you. That was a great one. Diva Dawn says, happy Friday, A&T. Bill O'Reilly stole my WHO super chat right out from under me. I was asking if you had heard about the statement Sunny had to read. Rude.
Yeah, we heard about them. Many of them. They're all, she's had to make many a statement recently. Sunny needs to learn. It's amazing that she hasn't learned this lesson far sooner than right now, which just leads me to believe maybe they know. It's like my theory. Maybe they know that they're getting canceled and they're just like really pulling out all the stops.
Yeah, well, and you've been saying for years at this point that Sunny never learns, no matter how many times she walks into
no matter
what, she does it again.
Dedicated to not learning. She's dedicated.
Yeah. Which, commit to the bit, respect, I guess. Wilmer Yaddy says, I do not get how The View has gotten away with so much. Should have been canceled a while ago, just for Sunny. P.S. Love you guys. Keep posting.
Yeah, it's like there's something that, like, you keep getting views. People keep wanting to watch it. And of course we play into that because we're watching them. I want to hear what these ladies have to say because it's just so ridiculous sometimes. But there's just a certain point where the return on investment is just not being made. And I guess they've reached it, which is very interesting. And it's kind of sad in a way because, like, The View is kind of a pillar of, like, American entertainment. It has been around for so long. I mean, for as long as I've been even introduced to television, The View has been around. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that you've really destroyed the legacy of something.
Yeah, and like, so was Disney, so was late night comedy television, and those were destroyed because of ideology. And I think that breaking point that you mentioned, this past election, may have been a major breaking point in a lot of it. I don't think woke ideology is like completely done, but I mean, it's mortally wounded, it feels like, at this point with the election results.
Yeah.
Alfredo Ortiz says, I'm working hard to buy YouTube and I'll have Mamala and Taylor be in charge of it. Goals. Get on that.
Buying YouTube. I wonder what the price tag would run on something